The morning flight from Portland to Dallas was boarding normally, when flight attendant Sandra Chen noticed him. She was standing near the galley, checking her passenger manifest on her tablet, when a man in his mid-30s walked past her down the aisle. Average height, wearing jeans and a gray hoodie, carrying a small backpack. Nothing remarkable about him at first glance, but something made Sandra look up, really look at him. And when their eyes met for just a fraction of a second, her blood turned to ice. She knew that face. She'd seen it before, but where? Aaron settled into seat 19C, the middle seat in a row that was already occupied by a businessman at the window and a college student in the aisle seat. The plane was filling up quickly, typical Tuesday morning crowd heading to Dallas for business meetings and connections to other cities. Aaron pulled out his phone to send a quick text to his sister before switching to airplane mode. Around him, passengers stuffed bags into overhead compartments, argued quietly about armrest territory, and prepared for the 3-hour flight. Everything seemed completely ordinary, but in the galley, Sandra's hands were shaking as she pulled up her phone. She scrolled quickly through her photos, through screenshots she'd saved weeks ago, news articles, missing person reports, FBI bulletins that the airline had circulated to all crew members. Her heart pounded as she found what she was looking for. There, the photo matched. The man who'd just walked past her, now sitting in row 19, was Marcus Donovan, wanted by the FBI for questioning in connection with a child abduction case in Oregon. The alert had gone out 2 weeks ago. A 6-year-old girl named Emma Reeves had disappeared from a playground in Eugene. Marcus Donovan was her mother's ex-boyfriend. He was considered dangerous. Sandra's training kicked in immediately. Don't confront. Don't alert the suspect. Don't create a situation that could endanger passengers. Follow protocol. She walked calmly to the cockpit and knocked. Captain David Brennan opened the door slightly. Yes, Sandra leaned in close, her voice barely above a whisper. We have a situation. I need you to contact ground security immediately. I believe we have a wanted fugitive on board. Row 19, middle seat. David's expression changed instantly. Are you certain? Sandra nodded, showing him the FBI bulletin on her phone. That's him. I'm 99% sure. David didn't hesitate. He immediately radioed ground control. Portland ground, this is flight 2847 at gate C12. We need security to the aircraft immediately. We have a passenger who may be wanted by law enforcement. Request you hold our departure and send officers to the gate. The response came back within seconds. Flight 2847. Security is being dispatched. Do not close cabin doors. Maintain current position. David acknowledged and turned to Sandra. Keep everything normal. Don't let him know anything is wrong. Can you do that? Sandra nodded, though her heart was racing. She walked back into the cabin, forcing herself to smile at passengers, to respond to call buttons, to act like everything was fine. But her mind was spinning. Marcus Donovan was on her plane. A man suspected of abducting a child was sitting 20 feet away from her. Where was the little girl? Was she alive? Had he already hurt her? Sandra glanced at Marcus as she passed his row. He was looking out the window, seemingly calm, showing no signs of distress or awareness. Just another passenger waiting for takeoff. Aaron noticed the flight attendant seemed tense as she walked by. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and her movements were a bit too quick, too mechanical. He wondered if something was wrong with the plane. Mechanical issues, maybe? He'd been on delayed flights before. He pulled out his book, figuring they might be sitting on the tarmac for a while. The businessman next to him was already on his laptop, and the college student had her headphones in. Nobody seemed particularly concerned. But wait, here's what Marcus Donovan didn't know. At that exact moment, FBI agents were already at Portland Airport. They'd been tracking financial records and had flagged a credit card purchase made under a fake name that matched Donovan's known aliases. The purchase was for a plane ticket on this morning's Dallas flight. They were less than 5 minutes away from the gate when ground security received the call from Captain Brennan. This is FBI Special Agent Rachel Torres. We're en route to gate C12. The suspect is Marcus Donovan, wanted in connection with the Emma Reeves abduction. Consider him potentially armed and dangerous. We need to handle this carefully. The child's location is still unknown. Ground Security Supervisor James Mitchell received the FBI's message and immediately coordinated with airport police. Within 3 minutes, a dozen officers in plainclothes and uniforms had positioned themselves around gate C12. The jetway was blocked. SWAT team members moved into position in case the situation escalated. But the priority was clear: apprehend Donovan without incident and without alerting him until the last possible moment. A panicked suspect on a plane full of passengers could turn deadly fast. On board, Sandra received a discreet text from the gate agent. FBI arriving in 2 minutes. Keep suspect calm and seated. Do not give any indication. Sandra acknowledged with a thumbs-up emoji and continued her pre-flight duties. She offered Marcus a beverage. "Can I get you something to drink before we take off?" Marcus looked up and smiled. "Water would be great, thanks." His voice was ordinary, polite even. Sandra's skin crawled. This man had possibly kidnapped a child, and he was acting like any normal passenger. She brought him the water with a steady hand, though inside she was screaming. Aaron watched this interaction without really thinking about it, just standard flight attendant service. But he did notice that the flight attendant seemed to be paying particular attention to the guy in the middle seat of row 19. She'd walked by that row 3 times in the last 5 minutes, always glancing at him. Aaron's curiosity piqued. Who was that guy? He looked completely average, nothing special. Maybe a frequent flyer the attendant knew. Aaron went back to his book but kept one eye on the situation. Agent Torres and her partner, Agent Marcus Chen, arrived at the gate. They quickly briefed with airport security and reviewed the tactical plan. "We bored through the front galley," Torres explained. 2 agents, weapons concealed. "We approached Donovan from both sides of the aisle simultaneously. He's in 19C, middle seat, so he's boxed in by other passengers. We identify ourselves, show credentials, and ask him to come with us quietly. If he resists or makes any threatening moves, we're prepared to use force. But the absolute priority is passenger safety." Chen nodded. "What about the child? Any intelligence on her location?" Torres shook her head grimly. "Nothing concrete. Our best hope is that Donovan talks once we have him in custody. The mother hasn't received any ransom demands. No body has been found. Emma Reeves has been missing for 14 days. Every hour counts." She checked her weapon, hidden in a shoulder holster under her jacket. "Let's bring this guy in and find that little girl." The agents boarded the plane, showing credentials to Sandra, who nodded toward row 19. Torres and Chen moved slowly down the aisle, appearing to casual observers like late boarding passengers looking for overhead bin space. They positioned themselves on either side of row 19. Marcus was looking down at his phone, completely unaware. Torres took a deep breath. This was it. She made eye contact with Chen. He nodded. They moved simultaneously. "Marcus Donovan?" Torres said clearly, showing her FBI badge. "I'm Special Agent Torres, FBI. I need you to come with us." Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes going wide. For a split second, he looked like he might run or fight, but he was trapped. Passengers on both sides, agents blocking both ends of his row. Chen had his hand inside his jacket, ready to draw his weapon if needed. "Hands where I can see them, Mr. Donovan." Slowly. The cabin erupted in shocked murmurs. Passengers craned their necks to see what was happening. Aaron's book fell from his hands as he watched 2 FBI agents confront the man just 7 rows ahead of him. This was really happening. On his flight. Right now. The businessman next to Aaron whispered, "What the hell is going on?" Aaron shook his head, unable to speak, transfixed by the scene unfolding. Marcus raised his hand slowly. "There's been a mistake. I don't know what you're talking about." His voice trembled slightly, betraying his fear despite his words. Torres kept her voice calm but firm. "Mr. Donovan, we can do this easy or hard. Easy is you stand up slowly, keeping your hands visible, and walk with us off this aircraft. Hard is we restrain you right here in front of all these people. Your choice. You have 5 seconds." Now here's where it got intense. Marcus glanced around desperately, as if looking for an escape route that didn't exist. His hands were shaking, sweat beaded on his forehead. The businessman at the window seat pressed himself against the wall, terrified. The college student in the aisle seat had already unbuckled and scrambled out, giving the agents more room. "I want a lawyer," Marcus said. "I'm not saying anything without a lawyer." "You'll get a lawyer," Chen said. "But right now, you're coming with us. Stand up, slowly." Marcus hesitated for another second, then slowly stood, hands still raised. Torres immediately moved behind him, pulling his arms down and securing them with zip-tie restraints. "Marcus Donovan, you're being detained for questioning in connection with the disappearance of Emma Reeves. You have the right to remain silent." Torres read him his Miranda rights, as Chen cleared a path through the stunned passengers. Sandra stood by the exit, holding the door open, her legs shaking with adrenaline. As the agents led Marcus past her, he looked directly at her. "You called them," he said, his voice filled with venom. "You recognized me." Sandra met his eyes without flinching. "I did my job, and if you've hurt that little girl, I hope they throw away the key." Marcus looked away, his face crumbling. The agents led him off the plane, through the jetway, into the waiting custody of airport police. The cabin was in chaos. Passengers were talking loudly, some standing to get a better view, others on their phones trying to record or call loved ones. Captain Brennan's voice came over the intercom, steady and authoritative. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that disruption. Law enforcement has concluded their business. We'll have a brief delay while we sort out the situation, but we will be departing for Dallas shortly. Please remain in your seats and stay calm. Your safety was never in danger." But Aaron knew that wasn't entirely true. They'd been in danger. A suspected child abductor had been on their plane. If he'd panicked, if he'd had a weapon, if things had gone differently, this could have turned into a hostage situation or worse. Aaron's hands were shaking. He looked around at other passengers, saw his own shock reflected in their faces. The businessman next to him was on his phone, urgently talking to someone. "Yeah, I'm fine. FBI just arrested someone on my plane. It was insane." Sandra sat down in a jump seat, trying to compose herself. Her colleague, flight attendant Michael Torres, sat beside her. "You okay?" She nodded, though tears were forming in her eyes. "I can't believe he was just sitting there, on our plane, like he hadn't done anything wrong." Michael put an arm around her shoulders. "You did the right thing. You might have just saved that little girl's life." Sandra hoped that was true. She hoped Emma Reeves was still alive somewhere, waiting to be found. Ground security and FBI agents interviewed Sandra before allowing the flight to depart. "Walk me through how you recognized him," Agent Torres said. Sandra explained about the bulletin, about seeing his face, and something clicking in her memory. "I wasn't 100% sure at first, but the more I looked at him, the more certain I became. The eyes especially. They matched the photo exactly." Torres nodded. "Your training and awareness potentially prevented a fugitive from escaping. The Bureau will be commending you officially." The flight finally departed Portland an hour late. The mood in the cabin was subdued, passengers still processing what they'd witnessed. Aaron couldn't focus on his book anymore. He kept thinking about Marcus Donovan's face when the agents confronted him. The fear, the desperation. And somewhere a 6-year-old girl was missing. Maybe scared, maybe hurt. Aaron said a silent prayer that she was okay, that Marcus would tell the authorities where she was. You won't believe what happened during the interrogation. Back at the Portland FBI field office, Marcus Donovan sat across from Agents Torres and Chen in a small interview room. He'd asked for a lawyer, but before the lawyer arrived he suddenly broke down. "She's alive," he said, tears streaming down his face. "Emma's alive. I didn't hurt her. I would never hurt her." Torres leaned forward. "Where is she, Marcus? Where's Emma?" Marcus covered his face with his cuffed hands. "My cabin, in the mountains outside Eugene. She's there with my sister. I swear to God she's safe. My sister's been taking care of her." Chen stood up immediately, radioing for backup units to be dispatched. "Give us the exact address, right now." Marcus provided the coordinates, along with his sister's phone number. Within minutes, Oregon State Police and FBI SWAT were racing toward the remote cabin. The rescue happened fast. Officers surrounded the cabin and called Marcus's sister, Diane, convincing her to surrender peacefully. When they entered the cabin, they found Emma Reeves in a small bedroom, physically unharmed but terrified and confused. She'd been told her mother didn't want her anymore, that she was going to live with Uncle Marcus now. The lies Marcus had fed her to justify the abduction. But she was alive. Medics examined her on scene. Aside from emotional trauma, she was okay. Emma's mother, Rachel Reeves, received the call that every parent of a missing child prays for. "We found her. Emma's safe. She's alive and she's safe." Rachel collapsed in sobs of relief and gratitude. Within hours, she was reunited with her daughter at a Portland hospital, holding Emma tight and crying into her hair. "I've got you, baby. I've got you. You're safe now. You're coming home." Emma clung to her mother, finally understanding that the lies Marcus had told her weren't true. Her mom did want her. Her mom had never stopped looking for her. The news broke nationally within hours. Missing Oregon girl found alive after flight attendant recognizes abductor. Sandra Chen became an overnight hero. News crews camped outside her Portland apartment. Interview requests poured in. The airline's PR department wanted to feature her in a safety campaign. But Sandra tried to deflect the attention. "I just did what anyone would do. I saw the bulletin. I recognized him. I followed protocol. The real heroes are the FBI agents who got Emma back safely." But Agent Torres disagreed when she spoke to media. Without Sandra Chen's recognition and quick action, Marcus Donovan would have boarded that flight to Dallas and disappeared. "We might never have found him or Emma." Sandra's vigilance and courage directly led to this child being rescued. She absolutely deserves recognition as a hero. The FBI officially commended Sandra, and the airline gave her their highest honor for crew excellence. Aaron followed the story obsessively over the following days. He gave interviews to local news, describing what he'd witnessed on the plane. It was surreal. One moment we're waiting for a normal flight, the next there are FBI agents arresting someone 7 rows ahead of me. You never think you'll be part of something like that. He was struck by how ordinary Marcus had seemed. Just a guy in a hoodie with a backpack. Evil didn't always announce itself dramatically. Marcus Donovan and his sister Diane were both charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, and multiple other felonies. Marcus faced up to life in prison. During his trial, prosecutors detailed how he'd planned the abduction for weeks after Rachel Reeves ended their relationship and got a restraining order against him. He'd grabbed Emma from a playground where she'd been playing with friends, telling her he was taking her somewhere fun as a surprise. Then he'd kept her hidden in his cabin, planning to eventually flee the country with her. But here's what struck Aaron most when he attended the trial. Marcus's testimony about why he did it. "I loved Rachel. I loved Emma like she was my own daughter. When Rachel left me, she took Emma away too. I couldn't accept that. I thought if I took Emma, Rachel would have to take me back. I thought I could make us a family again. I never meant to hurt anyone. I just wanted my family back. It was delusional, selfish, criminal. But Aaron could hear the genuine emotion in Marcus's voice. This was a man who'd committed a terrible crime because he couldn't handle loss. Rachel Reeves gave a victim impact statement that left the courtroom in tears. You stole 14 days of my daughter's childhood. 14 days where she was terrified, confused, told lies about her own mother. 14 days where I didn't know if she was alive or dead. You say you loved her. Love doesn't kidnap. Love doesn't traumatize. Love doesn't put a child through hell because you can't handle rejection. Emma will need years of therapy because of what you did. She has nightmares. She's afraid to be alone. You didn't love her. You used her as a weapon against me, and I will never forgive you for that. The jury convicted Marcus on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison, without possibility of parole for 12 years. You violated the most fundamental trust, the judge said during sentencing. You took a child from her mother, from her safe life, and subjected her to trauma that will last a lifetime. You showed no remorse until you were caught. This sentence reflects the severity of your crime and society's commitment to protecting children from predators like you. Sandra attended the sentencing, sitting with Rachel and Emma in the gallery. When it was over, Rachel hugged Sandra tightly. You saved my daughter. I don't know how to thank you for that. You gave me back my life. Sandra hugged her back, crying. I'm just glad I paid attention. I'm glad I recognized him. I'm glad Emma's home. Emma, now 7 years old and slowly healing, gave Sandra a drawing she'd made. It showed a woman with angel wings catching a bad guy. That's you, Emma said shyly. You're my angel. The impact of the case extended beyond one family. Airlines nationwide revised their security protocols, ensuring that all crew members had regular access to FBI bulletins and missing persons alerts. Training programs were enhanced to teach flight attendants how to recognize wanted individuals and handle suspicious passengers. Sandra's quick thinking became a case study in effective crew vigilance. Her actions potentially prevented future abductions by making the skies less friendly for fugitives. Aaron wrote extensively about the case, focusing on the often overlooked role of flight attendants as frontline security. We think of them as serving drinks and demonstrating seatbelts, he wrote, but they're trained observers, first responders, and sometimes the last line of defense between criminals and escape. Sandra Chen proved that a vigilant crew member can be just as important as any law enforcement officer. She saw something, she said something, and a child came home because of it. 6 months after Emma's rescue, Sandra and Rachel organized a fundraiser for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They raised over $200,000, money that would go toward resources for finding missing children and supporting their families. At the events, Sandra spoke about the importance of awareness. Marcus Donovan was on my plane for maybe 5 minutes before I recognized him. 5 minutes. If I'd been distracted, if I hadn't looked carefully, if I'd dismissed my instincts, he would have gotten away. We all need to pay attention to the world around us. You never know when you might be the person who makes the difference. Emma's recovery was slow but steady. With intensive therapy, she began to process what had happened to her and rebuild her sense of safety. Rachel kept Emma's life as normal as possible, enrolling her in school, in dance classes, surrounding her with love and stability. She's resilient, Rachel told Aaron when he interviewed her a year after the rescue. She still has hard days, still has nightmares sometimes, but she's laughing again. She's playing with friends, she's being a kid again. That's all because Sandra Chen was paying attention on that plane. The college student who'd been sitting next to Marcus on the flight, a young woman named Ashley Park, was traumatized by how close she'd been to a child abductor. I was literally sitting next to him, she told her therapist. We could have talked. He seemed so normal. How do you ever trust your judgment about people after that? Her therapist helped her understand that predators are often skilled at appearing normal. That's how they operate. It's not her fault she didn't see through him. Even trained FBI agents need evidence and investigation to identify suspects. Aaron reflected on the nature of evil as he concluded his reporting on the case. Marcus Donovan wasn't a monster in appearance. He was an ordinary-looking man in a hoodie. That's what's terrifying about predators. They blend in. They look like everyone else. The only thing that distinguished him was a flight attendant's excellent memory and willingness to trust her instincts. In a world where we're told not to judge, not to profile, not to be suspicious, Sandra Chen managed to balance appropriate caution with decisive action. That's the tightrope we all walk. The airline featured Sandra in a recruitment campaign, highlighting the critical security role flight attendants play beyond customer service. Applications to become flight attendants increased by 30% after the campaign launched. Many applicants specifically mentioned Sandra's story as their inspiration. I want to be someone who makes a difference. One application essay read, I want to be like Sandra Chen, someone who's alert enough and brave enough to act when it matters. 3 years after the incident, Sandra was promoted to lead trainer for her airline's safety and security program. She traveled to crew bases across the country, teaching new flight attendants how to recognize threats, trust their instincts, and follow protocol without creating panic. "You are not just serving passengers," she'd tell new trainees. "You are protecting them. Every bulletin you read, every training session you attend, every moment you stay alert, you're potentially saving lives. Never forget that responsibility." Emma Reeves, now 10 years old, was thriving. She'd become an advocate herself, speaking at schools about stranger danger and what to do if someone tries to take you. Even if they say your mom sent them, even if they seem nice, you run and you scream, and you find a safe adult, she'd tell rooms full of children. "And kids, it's not your fault if something bad happens. It's the bad person's fault. Always." Her courage in speaking publicly about her ordeal helped other child victims find their voice. Aaron's final article about the case ran on the 5th anniversary of Emma's rescue. He interviewed everyone involved: Sandra, Rachel, Emma, the FBI agents, even Ashley Park, the college student who'd sat next to Marcus. The through line was clear. Ordinary people in ordinary moments can be heroes if they're paying attention and willing to act. Sandra wasn't a cop or FBI agent. She was a flight attendant doing her job with excellence. That excellence saved a child's life. The article concluded with a quote from Sandra that Aaron felt captured everything. "We live in a world where evil sometimes wins, where bad people hurt innocents, where justice doesn't always prevail. But not always. Sometimes, someone notices, someone acts, someone refuses to look away, and a little girl goes home to her mother. Those someones can be anyone. A flight attendant, a teacher, a neighbor, a stranger on a bus. We all have the power to be the person who makes the difference. We just have to choose to pay attention and care enough to act." Marcus Donovan remained in prison, where he would stay for at least another 7 years before even being eligible for parole. In rare prison interviews, he expressed remorse for his actions, though skeptics questioned its sincerity. "I destroyed Emma's sense of safety and Rachel's peace of mind because I couldn't accept rejection," he said in one interview. "I convinced myself I was acting out of love, but real love doesn't traumatize children. I hope someday they can forgive me, though I know I don't deserve it." But Rachel had no interest in forgiveness. "He can seek redemption with God if he wants," she told Aaron. "I'm focused on my daughter's healing, not his conscience. He made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. My only concern is Emma, and she's doing amazingly well considering everything. That's all that matters to me." Emma herself, when asked how she felt about Marcus, simply said, "He made me sad for a while. But my mom and Sandra saved me. Now I'm happy again. That's what I choose to think about." Aaron kept in touch with Sandra over the years, watching as she became a respected voice in aviation security. She spoke at conferences, consulted with airlines worldwide, and never lost the humility that had characterized her from the beginning. "I was in the right place at the right time," she'd always say when praised, "and I'd been trained well enough to act on my instincts. That's all. Anyone in my position should have done the same thing." But Aaron knew it wasn't that simple. Plenty of people see things and do nothing. Plenty of people dismiss their instincts as paranoid. Plenty of people prioritize not making a scene over potentially saving a life. Sandra had chosen differently. She'd chosen courage over comfort, action over inaction, a child's safety over social awkwardness. That choice made her a hero, whether she embraced the label or not. The story of Flight 28047 became legend in aviation circles. New flight attendants learned about it in training. Pilots discussed it in crew rooms. It became shorthand for the importance of vigilance and the impact one person can have. Remember, Flight 28047 became a reminder to stay alert, trust your training, and never assume that doing your job excellently doesn't matter. Sometimes it matters more than you could ever imagine. And somewhere, Emma Reeves grew up safe, loved, and whole, because a flight attendant she'd never met looked carefully at a man in a gray hoodie and chose to act on recognition. That's justice. Not the legal kind, though Marcus got that too, but the deeper kind. The kind where good people refuse to let evil slip past unnoticed, where attention and action align to protect the vulnerable, where ordinary courage saves innocent lives. That's the power we all have. Aaron realized. The power to notice, to care, to act. Sandra Chen exercised that power on a Tuesday morning in Portland, and a little girl came home. How many opportunities did each person have to exercise that same power? How many times could awareness and courage change outcomes? That was the question Aaron wanted readers to sit with. Because next time, the hero might need to be you.